Would you even enjoy watching a movie if it was written by AI? If a computer took data from all over the internet and all of its sources that it could find and could write a perfect movie script that would make you cry just at the right moments, entice your emotions and make you feel things, and the story was great, would you enjoy it as much? That's a question that I think is perfectly acceptable to consider. There's a conversation that needs to be had. Everything about AI going around right now is amazing, and it can be used for creative outlets, and it can be really helpful. And who knows where it goes? We can already tell that search is going to be taken over by AI that can actually answer questions rather than you kind of entice the search results to get what you need and kind of still have to search around. But already people are writing, I could write, if I wanted to, a whole YouTube script talking about this subject, and AI could spit something out that is very concise, very attention-grabbing, and get a response out of you to watch it. There are already videos going around of talking heads, things like what you're watching right now, that are completely computer-generated. They're free or cost very little, and you can tell it what kind of camera you want it to use, what kind of focal length you need, what kind of gender of a person you want it to be, what kind of age, if they're pretty, if they're not. Like, you can customize all these things, and we'll see that with businesses for sure. I had a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday, and we were talking about this, and he made a good point. He thinks that this will first kind of go into the customer service realm. So when you ask something, an AI will be able to answer you, kind of similar to what a bot does now that you can install as a plugin for your website or something similar. But imagine when you can talk to a customer service representative that's not even there, but it has the emotions, and it can kind of be like, let me think about that for a second. And it's more of a person to person. It kind of tricks us into feeling like we're getting a more empathetic response and helps us calm down if we're having an issue. But back to my first question. Any sort of art, if it was a book, a movie, music, all these things already exist. It's not fantasy. If all those things were created strictly and completely with AI, would you consume them? Or would it feel weird? Because there's a question of how much of us watching a movie or reading a book or hearing a story, how much of it is impressive to us because someone created it as a person. It's a lot more impressive to watch a movie and be like, this director made this movie. And that doesn't even include the writers and the people who light all the scenes and the camera people that actually like set up all the shots and everything. And it's a collaborative effort. And if that collaborative effort went away and it wasn't about people coming together and creatively combining forces and making something that ends up as a cohesive story that's visually appealing and makes sense, it's basically like an accomplishment at the end. Like, look, we were able to succeed in this feat. If that goes away and it can just be typed up and spit out and it's almost perfect, is it as entertaining? Or do you feel manipulated? Because the other one, where people make any kind of artistic or creative and like work, it's a dice roll. You can prep and do as much research as you can to get a better result and kind of, help you get there. But in the end, you just have to hope people like it. But if a computer knows exactly what people like and they can spit out images and story and stuff, and they know that there's a formula that people can't resist, do you like it as much? It's just something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. And another thing is like with stock trading. People already use bots and programs to kind of trade stocks all day long on their behalf. And they work really good for a lot of people. But when everybody has the idea to plug in an AI software to their trading apps for the stock market, what happens when everybody wins all the time? Like, at what point does that crash something? I'm not an expert in that field, but does that cause an issue? How does that get regulated? Because people do it kind of already. So where's the line? And where's back on the art section of it, where's the line if somebody wants to write a book and they completely get their prompt from AI, but they write it themselves, but AI gave them the heads up and was like, this is the topic you should write about. And then the human writes it. Is that too much? Or is that just getting rid of writer's block? I think there's going to be a weird area where sometime in the future, it's going to be like meat or vegetables in a grocery store or produce. It's going to be like artistic things have like a stamp of like certified organic art, where it's like that no computers were used in this. And there's going to be vague things where the lines are blurry, like, well, technically kind of some did, but not all of it. But there's vague verbiage, just like how produce has like organic versus natural and stuff. Like a lot of those words aren't regulated. So companies can get away with saying things that trick us into thinking stuff's healthy. Like I wonder if that will happen with artwork. And I'm talking, again, like paintings. Back in the day, you used to have to draw and paint everything, sculpt it. You'd have to physically make something that would emulate something in real life. Well then, when photos happen, imagine back in the day how scary that might have been for artists, You got artwork where your whole thing is to portray something as realistic as possible. Nowadays we call it photorealistic if it looks like a photo, because photos exist and they always have been for us these days. But imagine then it's like you're painting and then all of a sudden a technology comes out that can just capture the human image very quickly and very accurately. What's the point? And then nowadays it progressed into photos became easier, and then it became digital photography. And before you know it, we have video, like, which I guess video happened before that when film was still there, but now we can manipulate those photos and videos to kind of be whatever we want. And the computer CGI happened. CGI happened to where we can almost make anything we want. And then animation came into there, and now we can merge the two together, and it's amazing. And now we're approaching artificial intelligence that can do everything all at once for us. And it's just in its infancy, and it's already kind of weird, right? Like, in 5 years, this is going to be so much bigger. And in 10 years and 20 years, it's not going to take long before... Well, I mean, there's already AI rappers and music artists, and you can type in prompts that are like, make a song that sounds just like this famous artist, and it will sound so close, but it's like a new song that never existed that you don't even question it, and it sounds good. And you can now, with all the deepfake stuff or whatever you like, the current term for that is, you can make somebody not exist. You can replicate their voice, and you can replicate their image, and you can create something that is not anything somebody said. If you create a video of me talking about something and I never said it, and that wasn't even me in the video, it's easy. And it's in its infancy. So what does the future look like? How will we know? Like, for the longest time, actors would have to like kind of just act according to their age, and more we see older actors reprising roles from back in their 20s, because now there's software that can do a pretty good job at making them younger. And usually it's just scenes here and there now because it's expensive. But in the future, we could make a whole movie after an actor passes away, and there's a whole movie created with them as the star because a body double did it, and then the computer just made them real. What does that look like? What does that look like for the families of that actor who now get paid for that usage? Like, there's going to be whole things that are just a weird world to navigate. That's kind of exciting. There's something super exciting about it, and something kind of scary. Because later, what's the point of watching this video later when you could search something and another video can pop up way more accurately and concisely explaining what I'm trying to explain to you? Like, YouTubers that are informative and like help solve problems probably don't even need to exist at that point. So what you'll be left with is the only material that you consume is based off of probably like comedy and long form like podcasting, I imagine, and who knows, that's just because I know what those look like. Maybe there's something else that will spring up that we don't even think about yet. I'm hoping and assuming that there will be a craving for like actual person to person communication that's like, based off of somebody making mistakes and learning and things like that. But I think it'll be possibly just limited to storytelling. from a person-to-person thing. Like if you like a famous person or you like somebody, you kind of listen to them for their take on life and stuff like that, where it's just very interesting how they perceive things. Now, there's some good things that I've thought about. Like what if, and might be a bad example, but it's one of the first things I thought of is, what if you can plug like city planning, like schematics of city streets into some kind of AI thing, and then it can basically tell you, oh, here is how the best way to lay out all the streets and stoplights and stop signs and stuff, and you should have a four-way stop here versus a roundabout here, and you'll get the best, most efficient use of traffic and time perfectly. Instead of somebody just having to have years and years of experience and still making mistakes and just using what they've learned from people before them and stuff, which there's something impressive about people mastering a craft and then using it and it working. But with stuff like that, when it comes to safety and efficiency, why not use AI for those things? I don't know how it works with school. I know people are already confronting that, and some schools are very for using it. They want to teach people how to use it because it's going to be the future. And then there are people that are very against it because if you're not learning anything, what's the point? But we all thought that with calculators and cell phones, and now we carry around a calculator all the time, and most people on average don't have to use the math they learned in school. But that's not really the point of math learning in school. It's not only to set you up for certain careers, but also it's just to get your brain working and developing and using like logistical skills of common sense and things like that down the road. So I don't know, but it's an interesting conversation. I'd love to hear your opinion on it. Like I'd comment down, please comment down on this video. If you have an opinion, I'd love to hear different trains of thoughts on this, because this is just something that maybe a bunch of people are talking about, but I just thought about this when I was just like in my kitchen the other day, and it just sounded very interesting to me. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.